All right, I want to know more about, like, I want to hear other people's opinions when it comes to Conquest. And one video, this title here is called "Why Conquest is the Perfect Plot Device." I want to see. Wait, sorry. There we go. By 100, I'll put the original video description below. But I'm interested in seeing what he says here. Why Conquest is the perfect plot device. I said it before. I don't know this franchise like that. A lot of this stuff is coming to shock for me. Like that scene that Conquest had where he was take it to your grave. Someone told me that wasn't even in the comics. So, and I was like, wow, really? So I'm getting a lot of fresh views on a lot of this. Talking about my view of the show, my view of Invincible, these Viltrumites and all that. I'm looking at it with fresh eyes, and I love that. And I'm interested in seeing why is Conquest a perfect plot device? Like, what is it about him outside of what they showed in that season finale, which to me that was the best episode ever. I'm interested in seeing what more about him makes him perfect. So I know it was perfect for Mark's case because now Mark is like at the end of the season finale, spoiler alert, was like, okay, all right, I got to step it up here and start taking these people out, these certain people out, you know. So I like that, and Cecil's stupid ending. Like, I like Cecil, bro, and I was with him. I was agreeing with him on some of the points he was making in season 3. I don't know what he was thinking in that season finale, though. I'm not going to spoil what happened. If you saw, you know exactly what I mean. But outside of those, what makes him the perfect plot device? Let's see here.
Way to begin this video essay is to come back to the moment we're introduced to Conquest, which is right after the conclusion of the most
ready for my arrival,
worm in the show so far, the Invincible War. This was a 3-day event and story that was orchestrated by one of Mark's nemesis, Angstrom. Angstrom would bring in Marks from different universes where he was evil in order to destroy the main universe in exchange for more dimensions for them to conquer. After the plan somewhat succeeds and Angstrom sends all the other Marks to an isolated dimension, Mark finds Angstrom and defeats him as well. Although all threats are now gone one way or another, the damage across the planet remains, and Mark is left to suffer with not only the rebuilding process, but the guilt of being the one who took the lives of so many people across the globe, even if there were alternative versions of himself. Now, Mark is certainly not guilty, but we know how Mark is. He's going to feel responsible for these actions, although he really shouldn't.
Yeah.
After something this monumental happened...
Something about Mark I always have to remember when I watch the show because some of his antics always, like, annoys me. He's still young, bro. What is he, like 20, 19 or 20 in this season? So he really came in this whole game out of high school, still probably not even 21, and dealt with a lot. At 18 or whatever, he dealt with what his father did. Anissa and everything in season 2, probably 18, 19, something like that. Now he's dealing with all of this at 20. I believe, and this is my fault, like I was looking at him to be more mature in his actions, but if you think about it, he's like Gohan in Dragon Ball. Granted, Gohan was much younger, but you know what I mean when I say that. He dealt with a lot for someone his age. You know, his father, who he trusted so much, did what he did, so on and so forth, all the way to Conquest. And then Cecil at the same time as well. This brother has to deal with a lot, and he ain't going to get it all together in a few years. So, you know, that's why I've laid back a little bit, and I'm actually I'm proud of this dude for his upgrade in mentality in the end of season 3. And for him holding his own. I mean, to a certain degree. I mean, I guess that's speaking too loosely when it came to fighting Conquest. It took a lot of different plot devices for Invincible to win. Still, at the same time, you know, I'm like, all right, Mark, I'm actually proud of you for how you handled this. And I even like how Cecil gave Mark some credit when he wanted, spoiler alert, he wanted Mark to run the Guardians. He's like, you stood up to me. And he gave him props for that. You know, that took a man to do that. And Mark's reasoning wasn't fully wrong. He wasn't fully wrong in that. So anyway, I had to learn to back off of Mark because, yeah, I keep forgetting how young he is.
Usually, it would serve as an excuse for things to cool down. Maybe even
But
a
when he
soft
does get
reset of
older,
some kind.
the more seasons
But
go, I
here,
hope he
that was
makes
never
more
an
mature
option.
decisions.
We knew that the Viltrumites had tasked Mark with conquering Earth,
Especially when
far
she come
before
back.
the
I don't know,
Invincible
like,
War had taken
we
place.
still haven't dealt with
And
that.
now at the
And
worst
people are
possible
telling me that it gets worse with Anissa. Worse than Conquest? Now, the person never told me that it's worse than Conquest, but they said Anissa, when she come back, gonna be issues. Don't spoil it for me, but I thought Conquest was a problem. Apparently, she's worse. So I'm interested to see where that goes.
time, they've come to see his progress. Expecting resistance from Mark judging from his previous encounters with the Empire, the one to check in and take over the planet in case of Mark's negligence or failure was the undefeated warmonger Conquest. I go over this moment again to really reinforce just how unexpected this man's appearance was, because I really do think that plays a big role into establishing how horrifying or hype this could be for the average viewer. The way that Conquest simply floats in the sky above Mark instantly establishes some form of dominance.
Yeah.
And him calling Mark a worm only backs this up. From the moment Conquest is introduced, we know from the jump that this is much worse than any kind of enemy Mark has faced, including the alternate versions of himself. Not only this, but we've seen Mark fight Viltrumites before and it's never ended well. It doesn't take a genius for us to know that Conquest is also older than most Viltrumites, only increasing his threat level. This does not seem to be a fight that Mark can win. For me, it's pretty reminiscent of running into a secret boss for the first time in a video game. If I had to be specific, the moon presence. If you know, you know. The fight just begins at a moment you really think it shouldn't, and Mark himself even points out that there couldn't be a worse time for this man to appear.
Yeah, that was
Despite
like,
this,
bro,
he's more
you
than
come
welcome to
now?
challenge, and the two charge at one another. Now, there is a little bit of an equal back and forth to let us think that Mark was ready for the big boys, but Conquest shows us why he holds such a name and begins to stomp out Mark for 2 issues straight. Even with the help of Oliver and Eve, there is no chance for him to win. Conquest is simply too powerful and bloodthirsty, even for the likes of Mark after everything he's been through. When they're cornered and Conquest believes that he's managed to get rid of Eve for good, Mark decides to drop one of the hardest quotes in media. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how fast you are. I can see the future. You don't live to see it.
Yeah, that was
tomorrow."
cold.
Although this is my favorite quote
It even
from the
shocked
fight,
Conquest. He
there
was
are
like,
so many
really?
more
But he
that just
laughed.
go
Like,
so crazy
his
that-
shock was laughter. But still, Conquest was like, really? You're saying that? And me as a viewer, I'm like, oh, something about to happen. So, like, I didn't expect Mark to go like that. I knew Mark was going to go crazy and whatnot. I still didn't know if he was going to win. To be real with y'all, I thought Omni-Man and Alan was going to show up. This is how much I don't know the comics. So apparently obviously that never happened, but I thought that was going to save Mark. And Mark was going to go crazy a little bit off of what happened to Eve, but still not win. It was going to take Omni-Man and Alan to show up. That didn't happen, but yeah, when he said that line, I was like, okay, let's see what happens here. That did shock me. That was a cold line. And shout out to, what's his name, the actor who plays Invincible. I always get it wrong. But the actor who plays Invincible, his deliveries on a lot of things is worth noting and getting attention of. Him yelling for Cecil to help, all that stuff, that ain't easy to do. And so props to him. His delivery on these lines is what makes it all so
You
good.
can't help but remember them all. It's pretty easy to have this fight stuck in your head because of all the badass quotes that Mark and Conquest drop in their fight to the death. And these quotes are only reinforced with the amount of effort you see both of these combatants putting out in this fight, especially Mark. You see that every punch he throws past a certain point is probably hurting himself more than it hurts Conquest, but he persists. Even when he can't open his eyes as his entire body's restrained, he persists. Even when he can no longer use his body to fight, he still persists. Through this, we manage to see the difference between Mark and Conquest. No, Mark and all Viltrumites as of now. We see the humanity that drives Mark forward. No matter what's in his way, he'll always fight. Not because he loves doing so or was made to do it like everybody else, but it's because he has people that he must love and protect. There's a certain desperation behind all of Mark's actions because he understands here that if he loses, everybody loses.
Everything's done,
Mark
yeah.
cares for others more than he cares for himself, and that drives him relentlessly. This is why I've always seen the battle against Conquest as sort of an ending to Mark's initial character arcs. It culminates all of his struggles and growth to that point and uses Conquest to challenge said growth. Had Mark been any weaker here, cared any less about the people around him, or had any less willpower, it would have been over for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this is another reason why Conquest is beloved. Because he doesn't only give us a spectacle of a battle while being a very interesting character, but he puts our protagonist that we've come to know and love to the greatest test he's had up until that point. And when he passes, we're forced to take in the fact that Mark really has grown. Conquest manages to do it all in his first appearance as a secret boss kind of character who just pops up out of nowhere and gets clapped by Mark. But thankfully, we soon find out that this isn't the end of his run just yet.
So what he's saying is basically what I was saying in the beginning of this video was this of why he's perfect for Invincible. He might have more to say, but what he's saying is basically what I said. I'm interested in seeing what now is left.
When we see
that's half the video,
again, which is pretty soon after the conclusion.
Wait, I'm sorry, let me go back.
But thankfully, we soon find out that this isn't the end of his run just yet. When we see Conquest again, which is pretty soon after the
bro,
conclusion
like,
of his
come
first
on,
fight with
man.
Mark, we see that Cecil had retrieved him and tricked Mark into believing that Conquest was dead so he can question him about the Viltrumite Empire in a secret government base. Although Conquest was left to be just no more than a head at this point, he's a Viltrumite, and we're shown that this guy is able to regenerate from such a
I knew this was going to happen, bro. Even if someone doesn't know the comics, I'm like,
something else is going on in the story.
You know, our Conquest won't get out of there. I mean, I got spoiled here a little bit, but that's fine. I already saw this coming.
Because once you see this moment go down, you don't care about what's going on in the current arc. Conquest breaking out, taking that one glance at Earth, and flying away is a moment that plays your mind until you see him again.
Oh my goodness. I saw that coming.
Now he's going to return with reinforcements that just spells the doom of Earth. We had already seen what the Invincible War was able to do. Now we're going to have an army of way more powerful Viltrumites come back, and nobody but Cecil's aware of this. It's a genius way to keep Conquest in the reader's mind at all times.
That's crazy.
Never being present, because we know he'll be back at some point. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
Thankfully, in the comics at least, it didn't take too long. The comics just throw us into the...
All right, hold on. Should I watch this to spoil myself? Trying to debate. Should I watch this part? You know what? It might not spoil too much. Let's see. I'll go through with it.
And we see that all of our heroes were heading toward Viltrum on a spaceship. And not even 2 pages into this journey, something crashes through the ship, completely destroying it. As Mark panics and jumps out to find his father, he's greeted by none other than our favorite Viltrumite, Conquest, to which Mark can only say, "No, not him," taking the words out of our mouth. Although Mark had already defeated this guy, he knows how difficult of a task this originally was. It is his greatest hurdle, and not even 10 issues later, he has to face it again. And trust me, it was even more difficult than last
10
time.
issues later. So we probably won't see Conquest for a few more seasons then. Probably. If it's 10 issues later. Like, probably like 2, maybe 3 more seasons before we ever see Conquest again. Maybe. So I might even forget this little part here. Okay, that's fine. I don't mind being spoiled a little bit. I'm thinking this is something for the next season. And I'm like, okay, I like to stay surprised when I get to season 4. But this looks like it might be a while, season-wise, on the show.
Mark
I already knew he was going to escape after I saw what Cecil did.
Conquest expressing his excitement to have a rematch with the man who...
At least I know Jeffrey Dean Morgan's coming back.
Leading into an equal back and forth unlike last time. But when Oliver begins to suffocate as he's not used to space, Conquest chooses to chase him down, which Mark responds by following him. Mark catches Conquest by the neck and chooses to try and choke him out, as an all-out fist fight just wasn't the answer here. While Conquest is attempting to release himself from Mark's grip by attacking him, this struggle eventually concludes with Conquest pulling out Mark's stomach, but Mark being successful in choking him out, putting him down for good. Of course, Mark passes out from the insane damage he's taken, and Oliver and Nolan take care of him on a planet while he recovers. This crazy battle that somehow even surpasses the first round in brutality concludes the story of our original Conquest and leaves an even better impression than before, while giving Mark another reason to get a power-up. And it also gives the story an opportunity to build up Nolan and Oliver's relationship, while progressing the world outside of them and preparing a new challenge. Now, at this point,
I wonder who's his voice actor going to be.
But we meet another in an alternate universe that doesn't do much at all. But he reminds us, or at least me, as to why I love this character. So when Mark comes to this alternate universe, he arrives at a Viltrum Empire. And now Conquest of this alternate universe pulls up to Mark and he's like, we don't know who you are, tell us who you are, and come with me, and if you resist, there will be consequences.
He said, please resist.
So please resist.
This
It's a
guy's
pretty funny
crazy.
moment with a hint of PTSD in it, reminding you why Mark probably just chose to follow his orders and say nothing else. This leads to something pretty different and crazy in the Invincible storyline. I just wanted to talk about this because it makes me laugh every time I see it. All in all, Conquest in his very short run in the Invincible comics manages to test Mark in every way possible, give the readers tons of badass impressionable quotes, and leave a long-lasting impression on the viewers many years after he left the story. Despite all his appearances serving to just move the story along, I think Conquest is a one-of-a-kind character, and it kind of makes me wish that Invincible was like Marvel or DC, so we can get more of him. But maybe there's some good in his short run, because
Yeah,
we're forced
sometimes
to cherish what little we got from him. With that said, share your thoughts.
Yeah, some characters are not meant to be lasting too long because their effect for the show, movie, whatever, is not the same. It doesn't. The writing for them would be, nerfed. It won't have the same effect as it did like season 3 did. If we get more and more, or if overdoing the character, it won't be the same. So I'm glad whoever wrote Conquest wrote him for that short amount of time. And that's it. He'll be a memory now. Because I will say this, I'm not even going to front. I knew he was coming back after seeing what Cecil did at season 3 ending. But I said, if he never did, let's say if Cecil never did that and Conquest actually died, I will always remember Conquest of what he did here. One episode and a little piece of the ending of episode 7. That's good, bro. And I don't want that to be messed up. And I hope when he when he does come back, it has the same kind of effect. But his point of why Conquest is basically perfect plot for this show is kind of like what I said already. So he only just confirmed what I was saying. I just said it in a shorter way. But yeah, I agree. That's why I also say IGN does not know what they're talking about. Anyway, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I'll post this video in the description below. Shout out to him. Did I like it yet? Yes, I did. All right. I'll talk to y'all later. See ya.